Hello, and welcome to the TEALS Volunteer Info session for the 2015 to 16 school year, where you can find out how to help a high school build and grow their CS program and keep your day job at the same time. My name is Kevin, and I'm the founder and ringleader of the TEALS program. So let's just jump straight into some statistics. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Science Foundation, there's going to be a million unfilled jobs requiring a CS background before the decade is out. If they're not filled, it really represents a $500 billion loss in the US economy. And just to put that into context, that would be something like 3% of annual GDP. Um, and this is not just a problem for the private sector, but think about areas like national defense that also has a really large shortage of computer scientists. Everyone can read pie charts. Sadly, this is not one of those hilarious meme charts. But I will just let the huge discrepancy of college students in STEM, which in itself is an area that a lot of kids are not choosing, to the percentage of STEM jobs after graduation that needs students with a CS background on the right. So as you can see, there's a big problem here. Well, why do we have fewer CS majors than 10 years ago? Um, let's look at the chart. Remember when the dot-com boom and bust was? Remember when people were selling pet food online? So that was around 2001, 2002. If you need music for context, remember Nelly's Hot in Here, or Linkin Park, or Avril Lavigne. Um, that actually had a detrimental effect on students choosing to major in computer science. Obviously, not the music, but the dot-com bust. But it is now finally recovering. But notice that while the overall numbers have been going up, the number of women graduating with a CS degree actually have not. So let's go take a look at another chart. This is all charts right now. Going back further in the pipeline, all the way back from the workforce to college, all the way back to high school. This is a chart of the advanced placement exam taken in May of 2014. AP advanced placement is essentially college level classes taken in high school. If you didn't grow up here in the US and you grew up a country that had the Queen Elizabeth on your money, this is sort of roughly equivalent to the A levels. And it's a pretty good indicator of the relative health of certain subjects for the K to 12 system and the rest of the pipeline. Of the 4.2 million AP exams here taken here on the chart, less than 1% was for computer science, actually 0.92%. And we're nowhere near the other STEM subjects like physics, bio, or stat, which are all around 200,000, 150,000. And so we're really doing, we're really pretty far behind. And well, CS is doing a little bit better than Latin, a dead language, but that shouldn't be any sort of consolation prize there. And why is that? It is the complete lack of access. Less than 10% of high schools in the US teach computer science. And if you took AP computer science when you were in high school and you took the exam, you are the 1%. And the sad thing is that all the studies out there suggest that if you're a student that took AP computer science, you're something like 5 to 6 times more likely to take computer science in college. And And if you're a girl and you've taken AP Computer Science, you're 80% more likely to major in computer science when you're in college. So this makes a huge, huge difference in the high school time frame. And computer science isn't just about having more computer science majors everywhere. Having a high school level understanding of computer science, much like econ or government, makes us all better and informed citizens in a democracy that will need to elect a leader to make big decisions on things like government surveillance. Whether you're for government reading your email or against it, you should understand the computer science behind it. It's not magic. Or on things like privacy, artificial intelligence, implications of big data, things like high frequency trading, digital crimes, and the whole mining of bitcoins. How's it mined? Definitely not with a pickaxe. And kids need to learn all that stuff in order to become a better citizen in a democracy. And whatever other fields the kids go into, the big ideas of computer science permeates everything. Regardless of the career that they're going to choose, they're going to need to understand how things work. Just like they take biochem, physics, and math to understand the physical world around them, they will need to have computer science to make sense and use the information world around them. And all of those come from the ideas in computer science that they need to understand. The magnitude of this problem is actually pretty big. There are 42,000 high schools across the US, from sea to shining sea, and sadly, 90% of them do not offer computer science. That's 16 million high school students and 3.5 million high school seniors graduating every year without having the opportunity to take a computer science class. It's unacceptable in the US, but sadly, it is the reality on the ground for millions and millions of high school kids every day. Things are changing though. 25 states in the union now recognize computer science as a math or science credit. When TEALS first started, it was 9. Code.org, ACM, and Microsoft have teamed up to effect these policy changes. But as Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local, and actually so is education. Just because you have a state law doesn't mean that you instantly get a computer science class in every high school. Let's take a look at just such a state. Washington State passed a law counting AP Computer Science as math graduation credit last year, but of the 80,000 AP exams last year, only 1.3% were for computer science. And this is in a state that's home to Microsoft, Amazon, and very slowly every Bay Area company is opening up a satellite office up here. And if you look at the number of underrepresented minority students, number of African American students is at 23. And actually, a few years ago, it was 4. You can literally count on one hand. So, increase of 19 students represents a 5-fold increase. And so that's good. And these numbers are pretty bad. So, nowhere to go but up from here. And if you take a look at the percentage of girls taking the exam in Washington State, it's actually 5% higher than the national average, which is about 20%. And that's solely due to one amazing teacher at an all-girls school, and he actually runs 3 sections of AP Computer Science there. Now let's take a look at the 8th largest economy in the world and home the governor. We're talking about less than 1% of AP exams are for computer science, less than 0.8%. So that's roughly about 1 in 130 exams was for computer science. And that's just such a depressing number. So what this slide shows is that even if you're in a state that is well known for having a huge tech sector, it doesn't really mean kids in that state have access to high school computer science education. And let's take a look at a few more states, big and small. The national average seems to be somewhere around 0.7% to 1.5% of kids taking AP Computer Science. Well, naturally, the question after all these slides with statistics is that why aren't there more computer science classes and teachers in high school? Actually, you can see this is a photo of the MIT EECS Career Fair. Think back to yours. Do you remember a school hosting a booth there? It's actually pretty expensive to have a booth. You can drive a Toyota Camry to the fair, have a booth for a couple days, and they get to keep that car. Schools simply don't have the recruiting resources as as the industry and tech sector. Remember when you can go to one of these and trade in your resumes for t-shirts? And if you go to one of these and you get all the t-shirts you want, you essentially don't have to do laundry for like the next 2 weeks. Um, and because of the huge industry demand for computer science, it means that the schools are just unable to compete recruiting wise. And when a college grad on average has a debt of $25,000, the financial disparity between choosing the two routes makes that decision almost impossible. And without the ability to hire a teacher with a CS background, the school is unable to offer a computer science class, and therefore it doesn't show up on the course selection guide. And the administration sees no demand from the students, and it enters a vicious cycle. And there's actually fewer high school CS classes today than there were 10 years ago. Well, after 10 very depressing slides, let's talk about how you can get involved. Let's fix this thing. We are engineers after all, and what we do best is roll up our sleeves and solve problems together. So essentially, TEALS works with schools that want to jumpstart, build, and grow a computer science program, but don't have a teacher with a CS background on staff to start that program. Software engineers team teach with the classroom teacher first period before you go to work with the classroom teacher, and after a couple years, the course is actually handed off to the classroom teacher to teach on their own the entire day. This is the only way to build a sustainable CS program so that you get to leave a legacy there at the school. How cool is it to say that you built a school's CS program? And we'll talk more about all of the details in the next few slides. Now, think back to when you first discovered the magic of computer science. Think about who inspired you. Was it a high school teacher? Was it a buddy? Was it a mentor? Or was it a computer science professor? We want you to light that light bulb in these high school students' head, help them make that leap of faith to their first recursion problem where it's hard to believe that it'll ever work. And we want you to do the same for the next generation of computer scientists. Notice the difference between the kids who learn CS on their own and having a teacher. The difference is huge, especially as the content gets harder and closer to collegiate level computer science. And also, look, more girls take computer science in a classroom setting than studying alone. So having the teacher, having an adult, having a mentor there is a big, big deal to the success of computer science students. We teach just 2 classes. It makes this simple path for everyone. Just like bio has bio AP, chem AP. We have Intro to CS and AP CS. The first course we teach is from UC Berkeley. Their CS10 course is a general interest course in computer science for non-majors, and we actually adapted it for high school students with the UC Berkeley CS department. It's a 1 semester long class, and we run it back to back, so we actually get to teach 2 different classes of students throughout the year, a different one each semester. And think of it sort of like conceptual physics level survey course for all of the big ideas in computer science. You use a graphical programming language that does away with syntax, so the students can concentrate on the big ideas in computer science like OOP, searching, sorting, recursion, and so on. But they get to build big projects just like anyone else. You know, one of the projects is Mario, another one's Hangman, Galaga, and so on and so on. So they actually get to build these pretty complicated programs at the end of the day. And it's a really fun introduction to the larger world of computer science. The other course we teach is AP Computer Science A, based on University of Washington CSE 142 and 143 classes. This is a college level course for CS majors. I'm pretty sure you remember yours, whether it was in college or APCS. It is in Java, and it is the hardest yet most rewarding AP course that I think a high school student can take. It's not as conceptually difficult as calc or physics. You don't have to derive everything every which way. You also don't have to memorize the entire book like Bio AP, but it does reward students who are persistent and are undaunted by not getting things right the very first time and want to spend time debugging things one step at a time. And because of this, we're really not kidding about the fact that the students are all spending an hour per night on their homework to be successful in this class. From a teacher's point of view, this is what happens when their principal tells them that they're teaching computer science. But let's actually use French instead of computer science for a moment here, because I don't speak a single word of French. Your principal wants to have an AP French class. You don't speak a single word of French. Maybe you had a French fry before and then rode in a Peugeot at some point once in the past as well. But your principal says, hey, I'll send you to the College Board AP French training of the summer. It's a week long, then you'll be ready, right? And that's what teachers are actually faced with when principals assign them to teach AP Computer Science. Pretty impossible, right? Now imagine the principal also said, I have 4 native French speakers. They will teach the class with you. You'll learn from them. You'll team teach together. And once you get the hang of French from these native French speakers, you will be able to teach AP French on your own after a couple years. Just as no one can learn college level French in a week, neither can anyone learn college level computer science in a week. But TEALS volunteers make it safe for the teacher and the school to offer it in this team teaching model. And we're able to take that very vital first step with them. We're at their safety net. And this is why our teachers and schools love our TEALS volunteers and software engineers. TEALS is all about team teaching. A team of 3 to 4 volunteers work with an experienced classroom teacher. The volunteer team has 2 lead teachers, 2 TAs. Each come in for a couple of days a week. So one lead teacher, one TA will teach Monday, Tuesday, for example, and the other half Thursday, Friday. The lead teacher work with the classroom teacher for lesson and course planning, grading, prep, all that stuff. And the TA is a little bit more of a traditional college TA role in and assist in lab and also helps in grading. And classes are early in the morning, first period, and they are done usually around 9:15 or 9:30. So you have plenty of time to go to work, and for certain companies, you'll probably still be the first one there. The school sets aside a travel stipend of $1,200 for each volunteer to cover gas or public transit. Some volunteers do get speeding tickets sometimes, so that covers a little bit of that too. And you do get a school ID and everything else. The classroom teacher leads and coordinates the volunteer team and works towards content handoff. And so this is very much a two-way street. Volunteers learn how to be a high school teacher from a teacher, and the teacher learn computer science from software engineers. TEALS is a huge commitment, and it is a huge problem, as we saw in the slides earlier, and you're going to be committing 280 hours of your time over the next calendar year. The commitment is not just to TEALS, but to the school, the classroom teacher, the students, and your fellow volunteers on your team. The breakdown is as follows. We spent about 40 hours over the summer doing training, about 20 or so hours in person and 20 hours of online and homework. The in-person training is 2 to 3 weekend sessions, usually Saturdays. We can't just airdrop software engineers directly into classrooms. So you need to be trained and be prepped over the summer before class starts. And then there's about 80 hours of teaching. You break it down to 36 weeks in a school year, and you're there twice a week. And in order to teach those 72 sessions, it's about a 1-to-1 prep time. So that's another 80 hours or so prepping. And then we also have, during the school year, we also do a little bit of training about once a month or so. And then lastly, let's not forget the additional time that you'll be spending on the road or sitting on the subway. If there's a 20-minute detour to get to your school, that adds up to about 60 or so hours over the course of the year. It is a big time commitment, but a lot of our volunteers say that it is one of the time consuming and difficult things they've done, but it's also one of the most meaningful things that they have done. And we hope that's true for you as well. With that big of time commitment, I think it's important that we know who we are teaching. We work with all sorts of different high schools, public high schools, charter, private, religious, independent, wherever the kids are. They're in all sorts of different settings, urban, suburban, and rural. And we also work with schools that are high performing and high need and any and everything in between. So whatever high school you have in mind, we probably actually partner with one of them. And our student population is actually pretty diverse, about 25% girls, which is double the industry average, and about the same for underrepresented minority students, which is, depending on the study you read, either triple or pentuple the industry average. And the kids we teach all see themselves uh, going to college, and this thing is that 3/4 of them, this will be their first computer science class. And the reason that we do computer science during the school day is if we did it after school, look at all the kids that we wouldn't be able to reach. Almost 60% of our students play an after school sport, a third of them volunteer, 20% are in band, and they do a lot of other extracurricular activities. So if we did computer science as after school thing, a lot of kids wouldn't be able to take this computer science class. Another cool thing we do is that we teach the exact same courses to kids in schools in rural areas. About 46% of the schools in the US are considered in a rural or town setting. Those schools do not have a tech community nearby with volunteers. So volunteers in a big metro area can teach kids in rural schools through the magic of teleconferencing. And additionally, we will send you, all expense paid, to go visit the school twice during the school year. And it is a huge deal for these kids in these rural areas. It is one of the most underserved parts of the country. And for them to get access to computer science, to see a software engineer and a mentor interacting with them every day, it is a huge life changer. Because we're in school only during the first period of the school day, we try to make computer science as fun and awesome as possible. So we bring in folks for college and career talks. We have some money set aside for class t-shirts. Why should only sports team get them, right? And we have raffles and prizes throughout the year for the kids to get them excited about computer science. We also have a huge field trip for them with lots of local companies and lots of local CS departments. Think of a cross between a CS fair and like a big science fair, like a CS career fair and a science fair, and also linking them to local opportunities, whether it be internships, summer camps, and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that the kids get access to all of the computer science opportunities out there for them. This whole thing actually started in 2009 when I was a software engineer back in Office 365. A local high school somehow found out I used to teach high school computer science, and I ended up working a deal with them where I would come and teach first period computer science and then go to work. And before the semester was out, four more schools found out and wanted me to do the same. So I actually ended up recruiting a few friends, trained them over the summer, and that's the picture you see there is the very first TEALS cohort at Issaquah High School. And then the program steadily grew out of control. We went from 1 to 4 high schools, then 13 to 35, and before we knew it, we had 100 volunteers. Then I realized I couldn't do this just in my spare time anymore. I had my resignation letter ready, so my portion, and was going to do the whole nonprofit thing because I thought that was definitely the right thing to do to go ahead and go try to make an impact on this huge CS education issue. Um, then my VP at the time heard about this and actually took me to go see Satya, who is the president of Servers and Tools business back then. And he said, if you do this as a nonprofit, you'll spend all of your time fundraising and no time to actually concentrate on the core program itself. So he proposed that Microsoft host and incubate a program for as long as feasible, so I don't have to go out and do fundraising and ask people for money. and so I can just concentrate on the program itself. I do still have to ask for a budget, but really it's the best of both worlds. What we do is so incredibly important to not just Microsoft, but the entire tech community and country. The tech community has given so much to Microsoft, and it's really about giving back to the tech community in a real, meaningful way to support a program that's for every engineer who cares about CS education, no matter who signs your paycheck. In fact, we teach Java in AP Computer Science, and we don't actually teach any Microsoft technologies at all. It's really awesome to run a program that's so embraced and supported by the CS community at large in this way. Between the financial support from Microsoft and the time that our volunteers have donated and invested in computer science education, this is what we have done since 2009. In the classroom itself, students think that volunteers are very helpful in helping them learn computer science, and 82% of our students at the end of the class feel proficient in a programming language. And we actually have now built a good pipeline of schools. A third of our schools are first year schools. They're new to the program. A third of our schools are second year schools. They're on their road to have the curriculum handed off. And a third of our schools are schools who graduated, quote unquote, from our program. And we had huge impact. We've had about 750 volunteers come through the program, and together they have invested almost a quarter of a million volunteer hours. We have together taught almost 13,000 students computer science, and about 4,000 of those are for AP Computer Science. And if you remember, the entire state of Washington had about 1,000 students take the AP Computer Science exam. Over the past 6 years or so, we've managed to do 4 times that. And things have gone so well that the National Science Foundation decided to spend some taxpayer money and study what we do and see whether this is a model that can expand and be applicable to the rest of the country in lots of other different areas. Volunteers have a lot of different reasons to volunteer. Some want to leave a legacy at school, some love teaching, some want to give back, some want to build a CS program for their kids when they get to that high school, and some just plain miss their old college CS TAing days. And whatever your reason, TEALS is sort of like the doctor without borders, but for computer science folks, I think. Really think about why you want to teach computer science. I taught high school computer science for 3 years after graduating from undergrad, and it was a really awesome experience. TEALS is a program made for and run by engineers and teachers for engineers and teachers. And by extension, this is my life's work. This is a problem I want to solve, and I hope you'll be able to join me for a year or two and be a part of the solution. So if you care about the state of computer science education in the country, and if you have a CS background, please consider volunteering. Be one of the 600 volunteers for the upcoming school year. And it really doesn't matter who signs your paycheck. I think as long as computer science education matters to you, we want you to volunteer. This upcoming school year, we'll be working with approximately 170 high schools in 20 states across the US. We have 54 high schools in Washington State, a lot of them in Puget Sound, but quite a few remote schools in Eastern Washington and south of the Puget Sound as well. As computer scientists, you have a very particular set of skills that high schools are looking for to help them build their CS program across Puget Sound and across the country. We also have about 35 schools in California, mostly concentrated in the Bay Area and the LA metro area. We also have about 22 schools in New York, in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, in Flushing, in Bronx, in Astoria. We have lots of New York covered now. We also have high schools in DC and Loudoun and Campbell County in Northern Virginia. And across the country, we work with quite a few states with various number of schools, and quite a few of them are remote rural schools in that model that we talked about earlier. So the important part, next step, if you're really interested in doing this, go to tealsk12.org/apply. This online info session is there, and we'll have a lot of other info sessions around the country. Applications are due by May 1st, and we're going to spend the entire month of May doing interviews, and volunteers will be placed the first week of June, and then training starts the second week of June. At the end of the day, you get to build a sustainable computer science program at a local high school, and you get to build a CS course where there was none before. You get to inspire the next generation of computer scientists, and above all, you get to be a role model to them, and sometimes you even get to change a life trajectory. So here's the address to apply again. Thank you for spending a little bit of your time with me. And also, if you have friends that are interested in doing this, let them know as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the contact form to get in touch with any of us here at the TEALS program. Thank you very much.